I'm trying to fill my old sketchbooks, and what could be better than finally drawing some Ghibli movie scenes? The 2 sketches I'll be making here are quite small, so they were a great test to see how detailed I could paint with my new set of Mungyo Oil Pastels. I used 2 different techniques for blending. Let me know which one you prefer. If you look at the reference, it has a very clear value and color structure. The castle itself is the darkest point, with most of it lying in shadow as it's hit by warm sunlight from the right. The sky is the second brightest part, overall a mid-tone, and it has some beautiful turquoise undertones. And then the clouds mark the lightest part of the image. It helps me to look at a reference like this before starting and literally explain it to myself, as if I were describing it to someone who can't see it for themselves. Some small sections that break this overall value structure are the white buildings on top of this floating monument. Even when they are on the left side, where they are in the shadow, they are overall still very bright. I chose a light cool gray shade to represent them. As I mentioned, I'll be using 2 different blending methods here. This first scene, from Castle in the Sky, I'm focusing on laying down base colors with a light touch, and then blending them into the paper with one of these blending stumps. After the first colors were laid down and I felt like I knew where I was going, it was time to focus on more subtle elements. The darkest shadows look like a pure black, which I usually avoid in my paintings, but really emphasize the scale and heaviness here. Something about this dark, earth-colored construction floating in the sky just hits differently than if it were a light, airy color palette. It's also clear that these visuals inspired later Ghibli movies, especially the flying scenes of Howl's moving castle. What was your first Ghibli movie? And is it the same as your favorite one? Well, I've loved their movies ever since I watched Mononoke Hime, which completely rewired little Evelyn's brain. I haven't actually painted any studies based on them. I always love watching other artists capture Ghibli landscapes or characters in their own style and in a variety of media, so I was excited to give these 2 very different scenes a try. As you can probably tell from me choosing Laputa, Castle in the Sky, and mentioning Princess Mononoke, I'm old. My favorite Ghibli movies are still some of their earliest ones, and I also love the manga based on them, especially the Valley of the Wind books. really liked the blending technique used here. It gave me a lot of control as I could always go back into the sketch with a clean blending tool and move the colors around to my liking. And since I literally pushed the material into the paper, it was easy to add more layers on top without smearing everything everywhere. Of course, these sketches are incredibly small, so there's not that much room for detail. I'm really just testing new techniques and trying to learn from the color palette of this beautiful art. For the second scene, I chose another favorite of mine that is much more recent, and in some ways an aesthetic successor to parts of Laputa. It's Howl's moving castle. I just looked up when this came out during editing, and it's from 2004. I need to go lie down. The world in Howl's moving castle feels so vibrant, and the comedy is perfection. And I love the book it's based on too. So for the second study I went with this contrasting scene. Quaint, peaceful, colorful, flowers everywhere. After all, I'm still exploring my new art supplies and I want to try out all the colors. For this one, mostly greens, pinks and brown hues. I'll provide a list of the main colors used at the end of the video. Now for the second blending technique. I only used other oil pastels to blend and mix everything. I started with medium to light pressure for the first color layer, and then, still keeping it light, slowly painted over that first layer in similar shades to create color variety. The different color layers would slowly build up and blend into each other, becoming creamier as I went along, while giving me a lot of control in the beginning, when I was still figuring out the composition. At the start, this felt similar to layering very pigmented colored pencils, but by layer 3, or whenever I applied any amount of pressure, the feeling shifted to this much more buttery application. I'd mentioned in my review of the Mungyo Soft Oil Pastels that these were the least creamy out of all the oil pastels I'd swatched. But honestly, by applying multiple layers, these get very creamy as well. It's actually a nice combination of both worlds. I can keep them precise and relatively dry in the beginning, or when roughly sketching in shapes, and they feel more like drawing tools. And then I can push them towards feeling more like painting towards the end. These two blending techniques, of course, combine really well. There's no need to keep them separate. Though using exclusively the pastels to blend into each other gave that painting a more impressionist mood, at least in my opinion. For urban sketching, I'll definitely be using the blending stumps, because they make the sketch less messy if I need to carry around the sketchbook. especially when I painted those final highlights or the individual flowers and used some pressure on each stroke. I really loved the textures. I still wanted to test something further with them. Varnishing. I don't have a specific oil pastel fixative, but I do own this spray fixative by Dala Rowney for charcoal and soft pastels and graphite, so I thought it would be better than nothing. I let the 2 sketches dry overnight with the sketchbook open and then applied a layer of fixative the next day. That still left some residue of the oil pastels rubbing off onto the other opposite page, though, and I wanted to experiment a bit further so I would know what to do in the future. After a bit of research, I tried out this method here, using acrylic medium, a soft gel by Golden, which I already own as I actually mostly paint in acrylics nowadays. While this is usually mixed with acrylic paints to change their consistency or shine, this can also be used to create an isolation coat. I gave it a try here. Using minimal pressure, not even touching the painting with my brush at first, just gently moving the soft gel around. I didn't notice any streaking or smudging at all, which was encouraging, and I slowly tried using a bit more pressure. As you can see, looking at them from an angle, they do catch the light with that glossy shine, but from above the gel dries completely see-through. I quite like the result and will use it for some more sketches in the future before maybe giving that oil pastel fixative a go. I hope you enjoyed these 2 blending techniques, and I'd love to hear what kind of methods you prefer when painting with oil pastels, and what your favorite Ghibli movie is. Thank you so much for watching.